When it comes to young voters, Bradford has more than most. Often dubbed Europe's youngest city, and soon many of its population will have more of a say. The government plans to lower the voting age from 18 to 16 by the next general election.
The truth is, young people deserve to have a stake and to have a say in the future of our democracy.
It'd be the biggest change to the electorate in half a century. Back in 1969, the voting age was reduced from 21 to 18.
So 16-year-olds voting, what do you reckon?
Ridiculous.
Why?
They've no life experience.
At 16-year-old, you can do a lot of things anyway, so voting, I don't think it'd be a problem for 16-year-olds.
I think there needs to be more education around voting before you lower the age.
18, I think it's a nice age, but I think 16 is just a bit too young for them.
The voting age was lowered to 16 more than a decade ago in Scotland for Holyrood and local elections. Wales did the same in 2021. It's a change Keir Starmer promised last year in Labour's election-winning manifesto. Some question the motivation, though.
On the one hand, it's about giving rights to young people, but on the more cynical view from some, there are perceptions that this would enable Labour to improve their overall vote share, because young people, we know, traditionally have been more likely to vote Labour, but that can still change. They are really a generation of young people who are in flux, and you have to think back to the sort of life journey that they've been through so far. Being born at the time of the global financial crisis, living through those early austerity years as very young children in the pre-teen era, then through the COVID pandemic, and then out the other side.
So what issues do young people care about then? Is it education, transport, the environment, and maybe most importantly, will they even vote anyway?
I wouldn't really vote, to be fair.
You wouldn't?
I wouldn't really.
Why not?
Not really interested in politics, to be fair.
Okay, and how about yourself? Would you vote?
No, I don't really know too much about politics, so obviously I don't want to vote for the wrong people.
Thea is also 16 and says she'd love to vote.
I don't think I'm unusual. I think a lot of people my age would definitely want to vote.
What sort of issues do you care about?
I think women's rights is a big one, and also I'd love for there to be more help with state schools getting into bigger universities.
It all means some children who are 12 today will be able to vote at the next general election, which must take place before August 2029. Reform oppose the change, as do the Conservatives, who say it's confusing to allow 16-year-olds to vote but not buy a lottery ticket. The Prime Minister will hope it pays off.
We did it!
He knows the difference small changes can make on the biggest stage.
Andrew Misra, well, what impact is all of this likely to have on the next general election, the outcome as well as the turnout? With me now is Elaf Al-Najjar, member of UK Youth Parliament for Hammersmith and Fulham, and John Tong, Professor of Politics at Liverpool University, who chaired the Youth Citizenship Commission under Gordon Brown. Welcome to both of you. Coming to you first, Elaf, why is this a good idea?
I mean, lots of people say young people are the future, but they can be the change makers of today. And there's no reason why we can't give young people the vote if they are capable of making that decision and influencing their lives in a positive way.
And you think they are capable?
100%.
Professor Tong, why is this a bad idea?
Well, the government doesn't think that young people are capable of many things. The government has raised the age at which they can buy a lottery ticket. The government doesn't believe they can buy an alcoholic drink, so they wouldn't be able to celebrate or commiserate on the result of the election in which they just voted. The direction of public policy has been to raise trajectories upwards. The government isn't planning to introduce, for example, if you want a comparable civic responsibility, jury service for 16-year-olds. So the question begged is, why is the government lowering the voting age when most other ages of responsibility are heading northwards?
And why do you think they are?
Well, I think the government doesn't really trust young people, except that it wants to give them the vote. So it's paradoxical. Now, people can say, well, you know, in Scotland and Wales, the sky hasn't fallen in. And it hasn't. That's true. It's perfectly, you know, in one sense, it's a healthy thing to get young people voting. But the sky wouldn't fall in if an interested 14 or 15-year-old was allowed to vote. There has to be a cut-off point somewhere. The UK was the first state in the world to lower the voting age from 21 to 18. The rest of the world followed, and it was completely the right move to make. Why? Because there was an agreed age of adulthood. Okay. The United Nations defines adulthood as beginning at 18. There are reasons why, for example, if you join the military in the UK, you're not allowed frontline service because you'd be classed as a child soldier.
Okay.
So there's one example.
Let me put some of those points to Elaf. It is a point very often made in this debate that, the government thinks you shouldn't be allowed to get married without your parents say so, you shouldn't be allowed to buy an alcoholic drink. Answer the premise why you should be allowed to vote when you can't do all of those other things.
I mean, there are numerous other things that young people can do at the age of 16. I mean, there are numerous decisions you make, for example, your GCSEs, which people say might not impact your future, but they impact where you can apply to university and so many other things. You can pay taxes at the age of 16 if you earn a certain amount. So there are so many things you can actually do. So I think that argument, there's so many contradictory things you can say towards that. And the main thing we're campaigning for is standardised political education to accompany the introduction of votes at 16. And with the UK Youth Parliament, we're aiming to consult educators, teachers, students, dealing with those between aged 11 to 18 in order to facilitate that in an effective response. So that you think that young people, if they are better educated around politics, more of them will want to vote? 100%. And if introducing votes at 16, you instill that earlier habit, which has proved to ensure a maintenance of that habit, which would be voting for a longer period of time throughout your life. I mean, John Tong, just I suppose as we wouldn't generalise about any other group, 16-year-olds, 17-year-olds, they vary enormously. Some will be interested in politics, others not. But what is the argument against why those who actively want to vote, who can take responsibility for voting, if the others don't want to and don't feel they have the capability or the interest, they don't do it?
Well, I mean, we heard some good points there. I agree. And there should be a GCSE politics. One of the problems is that the citizenship education in terms of its political content is pretty desultory. So we'd be letting 16 and 17-year-olds go out and vote without any sort of political education.
But the truth is plenty of adults go out and vote without any political education or any political nous. We know lots of people vote tribally, don't they, without even thinking about it as adults.
Of course, and I think, but in terms of those adult electors, do we take into account, I mean, today's government paper talks about restoring democracy. Every single UK-wide survey has shown that the majority of people are against this measure. The YouGov survey of Labour's manifesto found it was the single most unpopular item within that manifesto. Do the votes, do the opinions of 18 to 100-year-olds who don't support this measure, do they count? And how should that be weighted into the equation here? And I think, they are entitled to a say on this. That's not to do, we're not talking about males versus the suffragettes here. All we're saying is 16 and 17-year-olds should acquire the right to vote once they reach adulthood. That, to me, seems reasonable. And just to be clear, I mean, obviously critics are saying this is a bit of manoeuvring by Labour because they need and want and expect the votes. Do you think that's true? Well, it's a dangerous game if it is. I mean, the last time the voting age was lowered, and I agreed with that lowering, Labour was out of office within a year. There's no guarantee at all that 16 and 17-year-olds will vote in a particular way. Their vote is very much up for grabs. If this measure improves political education, if it enhances our democracy, I'd be in favour of it. But I suspect the majority of 16 and 17-year-olds will follow 18 to 24-year-olds and not actually exercise their vote. I mean, there is an interesting question, isn't it? There is so much cynicism among those who are allowed to vote around politics. Why don't young people share that? Or do you think that they do share that, many of them, but it's just that you and others do want to vote? I mean, there are already so many young people who are engaged with the political system. For example, take our annual sitting in the House of Commons, for example, through UK Youth Parliament. There are so many young people who want to be representative and champion political views. And I think we need to give young people the opportunity to do so. And through giving them the vote, that does give them that chance. Elaf Al-Najjar, got to leave it there. Professor John Tong, thanks both of you for joining us.